Welcome to the Show Up Show, where we bring you everything you need to emerge as a powerful and healthy leader in your life, business, and relationships. Because how you show up in one area of life is how you show up in all of them. I'm your host, Debbie Pace, author of The Journal to Freedom, a foundational guide to help you examine your beliefs and how they shape your patterns and behaviors in life, so you can transform what's not working and can show up like a boss in every area of your life. How can vulnerability not only elevate your business, but also help you heal yourself and previous generations? Tune in now as Kirby Monestime, CEO and founder of marketing and branding consultancy Content Redefined, dishes some serious marketing tips and a golden strategy to help you grow your social media. I'm so excited to have you, Kirby. Just in full disclosure to our audience, you did some work for me last year and I absolutely loved it. You created some great things that I'm still using on my social media today. And honestly, I'm just going to plug for you right now. So one of the things that I loved during our work together was that I thought I had a vision of what I wanted for my social media. Mm-hmm. And when you put that into posts and you created the visual of what I thought I wanted, I realized very quickly why some of my messaging and some of my stuff wasn't working, because what I was saying to do, I didn't even care for it. And then you went and you helped recreate the brand for me using the visuals for social media. And I'm still in love with it. I absolutely love your work. And if I can just recommend you to anyone, you're so easy to work with and so willing to move in the direction of the vision, but also hold your place when you know that something should be done a different way. So thank you for honoring who you are, Kirby.
Oh my God. Well, thank you so much for that feedback. You are easy to work with because you're a light in this world and you emanate light in your social media, in personal interactions. So it was very easy for me to work with you. And in terms of what you said about social media and marketing in general, I oftentimes talk to my clients about ego abandonment. If we were our own clients, then we could create whatever we want to create and we would sell it all because we're only selling to ourselves. But the reality of the situation is that, we need to tap into who our clients are, what they understand, what their passions are, what their pain points are. So I'm a huge advocate for customer research and making sure you really understand your needs of your audience. And then from that place, you can market to them. You can create social media content. And it's also about telling your story. And you do such a great job at this, Deb, in your social media about being vulnerable and sharing your story, because 9 times out of 10, that's the place where people connect with you. And that's what drives your overall sales and engagement in your business. So I firmly believe that people buy from people they know, like, and trust. And in order to know, like, and trust you, you have to be vulnerable enough to share part of your story with your audience. And you do a great job at that. And so it was a pleasure working with you. And that's some of the insight and intel that I love to share with my clients to help them develop the proper marketing strategy for their target audience. Notice I didn't say for their business, but I said for their target audience.
Right. Yeah, because it might not actually be the same thing, or they may not. Yeah. And they may not even, they may start one place and end up another through your reflection, which is absolutely beautiful. So thank you for those kind words too. I swear we didn't get on here to do like a love fest between myself and Kirby, but it's pretty obvious the energy that we have together. And I'm just looking forward to, beyond the Show Up Show, really just having an opportunity to continue to connect with you and create great things. Because I know that if you touch it, it's going to be amazing. So, it's the Show Up Show, and I really love the backstory that we get into on this show. Mm-hmm. And you and I have had opportunities to talk in the past, but I really would like to give our audience an opportunity to get to know you a little bit deeper. So sure. If you could share with us, your quick backstory, how did you get to where you are today? Like, where did it all start? It's content redefined.
I actually, I can't just tell people to be vulnerable. I have to be an example of vulnerability. So I will share that I started my business Content Redefined in 2019. When I was growing up, it was inspired by my childhood and some of the things that occurred in my childhood. But when I was growing up one of five kids, both of my parents worked extremely hard to give us an amazing, just abundant life, and they did the best that they could. My dad worked 2 8-hour jobs. So I remember as a child often not seeing him, only seeing him on the weekends because he was so busy trying to create a life for his family. And my father, he shares this story as well, but, he tried his hand at many entrepreneurial journeys and different paths. And unfortunately, he failed at a lot of them, at all of them. And, when I talk to my dad today about why he, assumed that occurred, he will share with me that, when I was growing up there, or when I was, creating these entrepreneurial journeys, there wasn't, we didn't have marketing coaches. We didn't have business coaches. We didn't have this insight as to how to create an effective business. So he said, I had to use my own judgment as to how to create a business. And unfortunately, I didn't have the wherewithal to do that. And so what he tried to create a few different times failed. As a result of that, we lost our childhood home. We were moving from place to place, just trying to settle into a home. And I saw the pain in his eyes and my mom's eyes, and even in my siblings. And I knew the internal struggle that I was going through as well, just because I was not raised in a space where we understood how money really worked and how to create abundance for ourselves and how to trust the universe for all of its good. And so through that bankruptcy, it changed a lot in my life. I actually went to therapy for several years, probably up until 2 years ago. I was in therapy dealing with a scarcity mindset and always thinking that money was going to disappear from my account, or just this very dysfunctional relationship with money. And it was my dad who inspired me to support other people in creating their passions and their dreams. And he was the one that encouraged me. Both of my parents actually encouraged me to take the knowledge and the information that I have and to be willing to share it with others. And so that was part of why I created Content Redefined. I wanted to help small business owners, entrepreneurs, and people who are creating their passion. They are creating an experience for other people based on their dreams and things that they have longed for an extended period of time. I want to help those people understand what is marketing? How do I find my ideal target audience? How do I speak to that ideal target audience? How do I become successful so that I can enjoy kind of this journey of entrepreneurship and I can make money at the same time? So that's my story of how I got into creating my company. And my company's been, like I said, since 2019. I've just launched a networking group as part of my company that I'm super excited about. Because again, it's about the connection. The more that you connect with people, the more opportunities you have for partnerships, referrals, friends, family. There's so much that comes out of networking that's so vital to being a successful entrepreneur.
I'm still stuck back in your story of losing the childhood home. And as a parent, I think about that in a different way than probably you did as a child, where
Yes.
I'm sure to you, it was just, oh, we're moving, right? And maybe you miss friends and maybe you kind of miss places. But I think as a parent, that must have been one of the most difficult things for your parents. And just my heart feels so deeply for what that took. And as you speak of your dad now, he sounds like such a kind and wise person. And I'm sure he was then as well, right? But it's just about not having certain resources available. And I just went with you in that place for a moment and with your parents and thinking, So now I understand how you're so amazing as well, because it sounds like you came from some pretty great parents, and not really having your dad around doesn't seem like it stopped him from being the dad that he could when he could. And I think that's beautiful.
You know, Deb, I have learned so much from, just trusting the universe and really being open to learning new things and the power of manifestation and the power of our minds and the power of our hearts. My relationship with my dad has always been a journey. To the audience out there, I'm a gay male. So coming up gay in my family, in a Haitian family, was very traumatic for me. It wasn't something that my parents were used to, and it was a journey for all of us. And, my mom passed away, unfortunately, in 2013, but, my dad is still alive, and we have a great relationship, but it was a process. It was a process from a personal relationship perspective, but it was also a process from an experiential perspective, and everything that we went through with the bankruptcy and, with me coming out and all of those different components. So what I've learned through all of that is that there is so much love that we have to give inside of our hearts if we're open to giving it. I got to a point in my life where I was open to forgiving my parents for some of the things that I felt like they may have, or ways that they may have treated me. But in reality, they were only doing the best they knew how. They were only acting out of what they knew to be true in their own hearts and minds. They didn't love me any less as a person or as an individual. And I know that because of the way my dad is with me now. Like, we talk about everything, and he's super loving and kind to my husband, and he calls my husband his son. So we've come a long way, but that was a journey for both he and I. For me to be understanding in that, yes, his culture kind of shaped a little bit of who he was and the rough around the edges pieces of him. And I just needed to understand and forgive some of the things from the past in order to move forward. And I think he just opened up his heart to say, this is my son. And as long as my son is happy and healthy and is treating other people well, then I am going to be open to loving him however he shows up.
Wow. And dad should be so proud, because you're such an amazing human.
Thank you.
But it takes a lot to move past that. It's funny. My mom just this past weekend apologized to me for some of the things that I am not secretive with my story of childhood trauma. And, she apologized to me this weekend, and I said, I don't need an apology. I mean, I appreciate as a parent that in hindsight, you wish that you could have done things differently. But I mean, we grew up, we were poor. I remember all we had in our refrigerator was a box of hot dogs. I remember that. Wow. Yeah. And so we worked for decades to move beyond that. And you can imagine what kind of money stories and all kinds of other stories that we had, but it's not about apologizing for it. I'm saying thank you for showing me how to move forward when you're dealt with some of the most devastating circumstances. And thank you for showing me what resiliency looks like. And thank you for showing me that above all, we still have love. And, and I think that there's this emotional intelligence that our generation is having. And then we're then able to share that, I think, with our parents.
Absolutely.
And I just love that. And your story really does encompass that from where I'm sitting. It's just a beautiful example of how when we do the work, we can actually pull previous generations up with us. And
no matter how painful something is, and thank you, Deb, for sharing your story. I know that you're pretty open about it, but every time you share your story again, there's always a little wound or something that comes to memory that may not have been so exciting and happy. But so thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story. And there's a learning and a lesson in every single thing that we do. And we just have to be open to receiving that lesson. And to your point, and I agree with you 9,000%, my father on occasion will say, I'm sorry for this. And I'm like, there is nothing to be sorry for. I love you so much for every lesson that I have learned from our relationship that has made me the man that I am today, that's made me resilient, that's made me tenacious, that's made me strong, that's made me loving and kind. All of that came from the lessons that I was open to receiving from the universe. And so when we open ourselves up, there's a gift. There's a gift that comes from opening ourselves up.
Yes. The human experience isn't about coming and living a flatline life. And I
Yes.
think that we perhaps are entrained to think differently as we're growing up. But I think as an adult, that's been one of the hardest lessons for me to learn, is that it's the peaks and the valleys. And
Absolutely.
I don't want a flatline life. And so, one of the things that I like to ask in the Show Up Show is, can you tell us about a moment of kind of like a tragedy to triumph, or how you overcame a difficult circumstance in your life? You've had your business since 2019, and obviously you went through your childhood, and the whole growth process could qualify for just answering that question. But I feel like there's another story that you can share with us about how you got from particular moments, in young adulthood versus having your own agency. Like, talk to us a little bit about your story from one shift into another.
Yeah. So for me, one of the biggest things that shifted and changed my life was actually when my mom passed away. We were very close. She suffered from cancer, unfortunately. And, being as close as we were, I did not think in that moment that I would ever be able to effectively mourn and be able to move forward with my life. Like, I could not see the light at the end of the tunnel. But when I started to realize that, we can create a relationship with anyone, whether they're living or dead, we have the opportunity within ourselves to create the relationship that we want to have with them. It was then that I felt a sense of freedom, and it allowed me to do so many different things. And so, I have a different relationship with my mom today. And I talk to her all the time, and I look at pictures and I think of memories. But part of the drive for my business was to make her and my dad proud of me. And I know that she is proud of me from wherever and beyond that she is. I know that she is proud of what she instilled in me and who I've become. So part of my story about being endurant and being, like I said, tenacious and resilient is around knowing that love doesn't expire, it just transcends. And when you are open to, loving everyone that's around you, and maybe that love is in a different way. Like, for me, I had to learn that love transcends. So regardless of whether it's a client that I'm working with, I can still share love with them and help them achieve all of the things that they want to achieve in life. And that's part of, I firmly believe that that's part of my purpose in life, is to connect with people and help them journey through life in a way where they get to explore their passions, which a lot of times it includes, an entrepreneurial journey or some type of business venture. And I can coach them and I can share with them, how to get to the journey that they're trying to get to. I'll also share, which I'm being super vulnerable about this because I don't typically share this, but about 6 months ago, I stopped drinking. And not that I had, it's funny because I don't necessarily characterize myself as an alcoholic, but, I'm on the weekends, it was like, hey, I deserve these 9 drinks. I'm just going to do it. And what I found through that process is I've found a greater understanding of me. And I found a greater understanding of what really makes me happy. See, in the past, I would think that alcohol makes me happy, but I'm learning that meeting new people and talking to them and building relationships and networking and connecting, those things really help to energize me as well. And so even though that's not the drive of what started my business, it is the driving force of me doing things like creating my networking group that just launched last week, and really looking at my business and saying, how can I take this to the next level? And how can I take people that are conscious minded, passion minded? How can I take them along in that journey?
First of all, congratulations. Whether you identify as an alcoholic or just know that and can feel that your body is better without the alcohol, because I think that's a place that I've been in for sure, is I just think that my body likes not having alcohol in it. So regardless of which part of the spectrum you would put yourself on, I think it's a beautiful choice to do that. And so I congratulate you. And it's something that our society doesn't necessarily make that easy. So,
thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Alcohol is so socialized in everything that we do. So
awesome. So I wanted to ask you if you could say that there's one thing that people might be doing in their social media or their marketing, that if I could just share one thing with people that would help them, what would it be, Kirby?
So you mentioned social media specifically. So one of the things that I tell my clients over and over again is that it's about quality, not quantity. Many people are focused on how many new fans do I have on my page? I need to get this many fans on my page. And my feedback to them is, you know what? Fans on the page is great, but if none of them are talking, if they're not commenting, liking, sharing, they're not ultimately going to be potential clients for you. And they're not ultimately going to elevate your brand as a connective brand out there in the universe, right? So one of the tips that I love to give to people is focus less on the numbers. Now, I will say that in certain circumstances, the numbers are important. As an example, if you're writing a book, many, book publishers are going to look to see before they take on your project, they're going to look to see how many social media fans you have. They want to see how connected you are. So I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying everything in balance. Think about if the engagement is actually happening on your page. And if the goal is to grow your business, make sure that you are sharing your story and you're sharing messages and asking the audience to share their messages and their stories so that people are connecting on a deeper level. And ask your clients. It goes back to this ego abandonment, perspective that I was sharing before. Ask your clients what kind of content resonates with them. Don't just assume that because you feel like it's great content, that it's actually resonating with them, because that's not going to help with your engagement. And ultimately that might lend to you losing fans on your page.
That's so helpful. And I do feel like we went through that when I first started working with you. And I was like, I want more people. And you said, it doesn't matter though, if they're not the right people. And that's just such a very valuable nugget, especially for entrepreneurs who have established their business and really want to grow their online presence.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that with us. So as we wind down today, I would love to know, how can people work with you? Where do they find you? If you could send them to just one place from this particular show today, where would you send them?
Well, I'd love for people to follow me on Instagram. It's my handle's Content Redefined. So you can find me there. But I'm also on Facebook, LinkedIn. So Content Redefined or Content Redefined LLC. But you can find me on Instagram at Content Redefined.
Awesome. And so one piece of advice that you could leave our audience with as we completely wrap up here, what would that be?
Authenticity is a great marketing tool for success.
If you like what you're hearing on the Show Up Show, be sure to subscribe. And if you really, really, really like it, please leave a 5-star review. If you'd like to connect with the Show Up Show on social media, you can find us on Facebook at the Show Up Show Podcast or on Twitter at the Show Up Show. Let's be sure to connect over on the other side. Thanks for listening.